Hello, my name is Erica, and I'm the Dyslexic Trekkie. I'm having to record this video while there's a rainstorm outside, so if you can hear the rain, I apologize. I will try to keep any thunder you might hear down to a minimum. I also am on attempt 3 to record this because Ensign Bradbury decided that he didn't want to be on my lap. I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and less than a sentence in, he was making noise. So, on that note, I will get things started. This week, I'll be continuing my revision of Code of Honor. In the last video, I established in my revision that Ligon is an advanced culture scientifically, but opts for lab research rather than space exploration. They have a vaccine which is needed on another planet because some of their scientists worked out that there was a high probability of an outbreak of the virus in question. I also established that Ligon and Tasha developed a friendship while she showed him how they used the holodecks for training. She planned on visiting him while on her next leave, and it's apparent that there is a mutual attraction. This is what leads Ligon to beam Tasha down with him. It's a product of misunderstanding. I left the episode when Picard makes his demand for Yar's return. He didn't fire on the planet's atmosphere in my version because that's just foolish. Firing on an entire planet because of one man's behavior is the height of colonial thinking. In my version, Captain Picard explains how taking Yar is considered a crime, kidnapping, within the Federation, and demands her return. And now I pick up where I left off. Picard and his crew on the bridge work out how to handle Yar being taken away, presumably without her permission. Picard is demanding Yar's return. He doesn't need to point out the power of the Enterprise. He simply states that not returning Yar will constitute a diplomatic incident, one he's sure they don't want to cause. In my version, Ligon is looking to maintain its ally relationship with the Federation, but it's also strengthening its standing galactically as a place of learning and scientific research. His question to Deanna Troi isn't if the people of Ligon will harm her, but if he thinks Ligon will. Deanna states that she felt no hostile emotions, but rather one of interest and perhaps attraction, and the admission stated in the actual episode that this is a power play for him as well. In my version, Ligon is still an antagonist, and this is where Deanna states that she's not wholly sure Yar was an unwilling participant. Deanna explains that though Yar was very surprised, she was more confused than scared. She points out Yar's words, "That's not what I meant," suggesting that this is more of a casual misunderstanding than an outright kidnapping. I would keep Data's observation of how they value patience. Riker's statement that he agrees and their ritualistic ways of doing things can be slightly altered to make it systematic and precise. Same idea, only the second can be a trait associated with the scientific method. Precise actions and procedures are needed regardless of the area of scientific study. All of that requires patience. And the captain's log is fine. I don't think there's a need to change it. The question of power has a different note to it because he's wondering how far they'll take the waiting. I can guess here the planet government hasn't responded yet because they're waiting to see if Ligon will. This is his doing. The conversation with Dr. Crusher is an interesting point. She comes into Picard's ready room and asks him how long it's going to take. I would have dropped the point about the vaccine needing to be replicated. In my version, the sample given was for that purpose. Given the original episode seemed to forget about the vaccine after they got Yar back, I would change the issue to a question of transport. They're doing fine with replicating the vaccine. They're nearly done with the batch the Enterprise was expected to make right away. The issue is, with the conflict, they can't leave. The courier ship will get there, but the Enterprise was planning on meeting them part way to drop off the samples and the replicated doses. It means more time, and as she says in the episode, the death toll's off the scales. The vaccine is needed as soon as possible. I wouldn't change a thing about Crusher's interactions regarding Wesley, or the interactions with Wesley overall. I always liked him. He wasn't one of my favorites, but he has a fantastic story arc. This little aside in the middle of all the other nonsense is a really good literary break too. It gives the viewers a chance to step away for a moment before getting back to it. Back to the actual story plot. Data's little description has to be adjusted. As sorry as I am to lose a moment when Data inadvertently explains French to Picard, I don't think it's appropriate for the society I've created. Data instead explains that Ligon has a developed culture of hospitality, common among desert societies. And yes, this is true even with more advanced societies on Earth now. Among the planet's social structure is a developed respect for those that come to their planet. They're honored and given the best there is to offer, a holdover from their more primitive time when resources were more scarce. I'd give him a bit more of a ramble on where Picard can stop him. I think that works just as well as Picard basically arguing over the validity of the French language. Data explains that within their culture, Lutan wouldn't have taken Yar without having some reason to think she might want to go. Troy explains that it fits what they know and explains some of what she sensed. I would also keep Troy's description of Lutan having an abnormally high need for achievement. He basically jumped the gun on having Yar visit him because of what her visit would mean for his prestige. When Crusher asks why Tasha, Troy answers, "I believe it's because she was the most desirable, and he might have seen an interest in her. They did spend all day together. I believe there was a mutual interest." When Lutan finally responds and demands the communication include image display, Picard doesn't take the tone he does in the actual episode. He states that he needs to know that his officer is safe. Lutan is insulted, and the crew mute Lutan to explain that Picard needs to ask for Yar back. Not because Lutan successfully kidnapped Yar, but because such a tone, when Lutan's intentions didn't appear to be aggressive from his perspective, implies more than what they really mean. Asking for her return could be seen as her captain stating that he needs his security officer back from leave. Picard does so. The boldly taken is changed to, "You allowed her a day to visit you." Then Lutan invites them down as a way of saying goodbye. Either way, he looks smug, as if he won something because he has. He got the chance to bring her down to the planet and show her his home. What that means isn't clear yet. He's still hiding a deeper interest. The aside between Picard, Deanna, and Riker can stay. If any leader visited any place, they would be an honored guest. Deanna would explain to Riker that the honors don't extend to the second in command, and in fact would be a slight. I would also like to establish that Deanna very clearly stated Lutan was not seen as a potential killer. I think that's just stupid. Captain Picard and Deanna Troi beam down, and this is where they learn things aren't exactly as simple as it seemed. For someone flirting with Yar so much, the two find it odd to be meeting Lutan's wife. Though his introducing her as his first one does imply there could be a second or a third, which could explain the flirting and why he would be doing it while married. Picard does ask to see Yar before her return, and Lutan does play his overly confident attitude. He makes the points of courtesy, but Picard says that the Federation has protocol for allowing crew to enjoy leave. He explains that Yar isn't in trouble, but the situation will create complications, keeping with the pretense that this was all a day's shore leave. But Lutan is still acting a bit more smug than makes sense. Yar doesn't come out fighting, no one's holding her by the arm. Instead, she walks out a bit smug, with a few of the guards with her seeming a little banged up. She was sparring with them. Yar, of course, would have said that she hadn't meant to visit then, but accepted being there until she was returned. She's security. They don't just know how to fight, but how to handle diplomatic issues, or keep from a fight if needed. In my work, it's called de-escalation techniques. The celebration before returning Yar is visually about the same. I love the look of the planet and its red sky. And also with the lighting and the layout, it becomes clear that this is a more complicated culture than shown in the episode. At this point, I keep what's in the episode, including Picard's request for Yar to be returned. The context has changed enough that I think it's clear what he's requesting. I also can't really change a lot here. Lutan's refusal to return Yar is needed for the progression of the story. His reasons are the same as well, more or less. He states that he loves Yar and he wants her to stay with him. Yar is surprised and sees a difficult situation. I'd like to take a moment to look at the story from her perspective. Yar spent the day with Lutan on her ship, getting to know him, or at least learning what he wants her to see. He's charming, encouraging, and engages with her in ways she appreciates. She's brought down to the surface after saying she would like to spend more time with him in the future. She realizes he thought she meant now, and has to find a way to keep the misunderstanding from becoming a political incident. Due to some of the precautions for research, her badge doesn't work, so she can't let anyone know she's okay. All she can do is wait until someone comes and gets her. I have to imagine that would have been a difficult situation for the chief of security. She finds out he's already married, but their culture practices polyamory. Maybe this leads her at first to think they could still work. After all, this was a misunderstanding, and she's being treated well. I would guess his wife, Urena, was courteous to her. Maybe she sees Yar as a potential second wife and wants to see if they would get along. Of course, Yar's not thinking of marriage. It's not gotten that far yet, and it likely never will after all this. But she's in their home and tries to keep things polite. His wife's nice enough, and she's still attracted to Lutan. Then, at the banquet, Picard asks for Yar's return. There's every indication that she will be returned. Lutan has to, as far as they can tell. Then, he not only refuses to return Yar, but says he wants to marry her. On top of that, he wants her to usurp his first wife. Urena would have likely been fine with her becoming his second wife, but now she faces being replaced. A wholly different story. So she goes from a pleasant day with a cute guy to a challenge to the death with his wife. Every so often, Star Trek writers give their characters days that just suck. Today is Yar's day. The plus side is, in my story, the vaccine isn't in question. They already have it, but the Federation does need the alliance. One man's bad actions don't change that. Picard says that the battle can't happen. Yar can't be forced to fight to the death. Lutan threatens to use his position in the Ligon government to ensure that the treaty won't happen, and he will keep Yar. So the fight has to happen. Oh, and it is an obscure right. His wife is still the first in centuries to demand it. It's considered to be from a bygone era, but his actions are too. There's no way around it. And this is a good point to leave things. I'm doing this in a bit of a crunch, and I'm afraid the video may be running long. If there's any point in the story you think I missed, or a hole in my revisions you see, let me know. I want to hear feedback. Thank you for watching. If you like this subject, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any thoughts, feelings, or ideas on this subject, please share in the comments below. Again, my name is Erica, and I'm the Dyslexic Trekkie. Vision, comma. Okay. Yeah, well, you could have been hanging out if you hadn't been so noisy. I also established that Lutan developed a friendship while she showed... Well, she did. She really did. Yeah, I know you're annoyed, but you were given the chance to be a good boy, and you did not take it. Nope. Get down. No, Ray. We have literally just started, and this is 7 pages long. I also established. You can be all the stink eye you want, Cap, but you're still going to be sitting up here. Yeah, people need that. It's important. Because he's wondering how far they'll take their waiting. All of that. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I know. You're pissed at me. But don't make so much noise and you don't get stuck on my lap.